How are you all today? Welcome to Integrative Preparedness. I've debated on whether to do this one or not, and I've decided to, just in case it might help someone. I'm not going to put any ads on here. First off, I don't want to make any money off this one. And secondly, I'm not going to allow YouTube because I'm not sure that I'd approve what kind of ads they might put on this. Um, so there is that. I want to talk about guns, mental health, home security. Last week, a week ago today, as a matter of fact, I was walking out of my garage and I heard my across the cul-de-sac neighbor yelling, "No, no, no." I looked over there and saw him down on his hands and knees right inside his garage. His garage door was open, pounding the concrete with his fist. And I thought maybe because I thought, well, man, has he hit his head on something? Because I've been there. I'd do something and I get mad but he just kept at it. And then I saw, so I kept paying attention to see if maybe I needed to go over and help. And then I saw his little boy, 8 or 9 years old, I don't know, go over and kneel down next to him. And I said, well, I better go over there. And so I did. As I was walking up his driveway, he got up and he saw me and he came out and he said, I said, "Man, well, you all right? What's going on?" And he just said, my daughter's gone. And I said, "Gone?" And he says, "Yes." I won't take you through step by step, but then he asked me to call 911. He was very distraught. He's a big tough guy. He's a former Marine and from what I understand, a brilliant lawyer. So I called Aiden, who was right there. I had Aiden call 911 so that I can continue to talk with my neighbor. And then Aiden gave him the phone, and then I heard him say, "My daughter has killed herself." Well, of course, naturally, I didn't pursue whys and things like that. This was not the kind of girl that you would think of there. It's a very close family. It's a very accomplished family. All of them are. She was a straight A student. She was a senior, getting ready to graduate, and actually, she didn't know this quite yet. But because, well, sadly, I don't know whether to put this in or not. Um, it wasn't until several days later after this happened that the family got the notice that apparently she was headed to the Air Force Academy. Everything in school, National Honor Society. She played clarinet in the school band. She was on the girls' wrestling team. She was a blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm not a practitioner of BJJ, but from what I understand, blue belt is no joke. And spent a lot of time, and one of her favorite things, she was the type that she read Dostoevsky when she was a young teenager. One of her favorite things was working with disabled kids through a nonprofit that she'd been involved in for years. Not the kind of person that you would usually think would do this. And I'll come back to that in a minute. Well, I assumed, as always, with girls, it's usually pills. I have some, not personal, well, I have professional experience in that. So, of course, it's been a very sad week. I had a chance to talk with him a little bit at the funeral. But yesterday I had a chance to talk quite a while with her mother. And it turns out that, and of course, people usually say they try to look back and see clues and things. And she says that she couldn't. Of course, at this time, you're not thinking clearly. And it came out just in conversation that she had been able to get her dad's gun, which was locked up. And that's how she killed herself. even more sadly, she did it in her parents' bedroom. Whether that was sadly or not, or pre-planned, doesn't, well, it's not that it doesn't matter. I'm just not going to talk about it. They were. It turns out that this was such apparently from what I got from her mother. She says, and I told her, I said, well, when it finally came out that's how it happened, I said, I was surprised. I had thought it would be something else. She said, well, she was always thinking about other people. One of her proudest moments is when she got her driver's license and was able to be an organ donor. And yesterday, as a matter of fact, they were harvesting her organs too. And her mother says, I'm sure that she did that so that there wouldn't be anything in her system that would keep them from giving life to others. I'm not going to get into it's not my purpose to get into detail, and I won't get into personal, but there was no note. But as they found her journals, they were able to see that over the last couple of months, they became very dark. And yet nobody around noticed anything, as far as they have told me. She was always up. She was always there to help people. She was a high achiever. She was always there for other people. All these kinds of things. So, it's to say that this is a sad story would be a vast understatement. But it brings out a couple of things. And like I say, I'm making this one in case it helps anyone. Okay. Years ago, I don't remember any teen, young person killing themselves. When I was at the hospital, I was talking to a neighbor of mine at the funeral, and I said, this doesn't happen for the most part in the hood. And he looked at me like, really? I said, no, not really. It doesn't happen in the small towns for the most part. It doesn't happen rurally for the most part. It happens occasionally. I've worked suicides in the country, but not usually. This is a suburban and an upper economic, high achieving suburban for the most part problem. When I first went to work in the hospital, what's it been, 2008, 9, something like that. If we had one SI, which means suicidal ideation, means the person has a thought to commit suicide and has a plan to do it. If we had one a year, it was unusual. By the time I left, whenever they gave Kelly and I the boot for not taking the poke, so that's been several years. It was unusual for me to come to work at 3 p.m. and for there not to be at least one person in there for SI, suicidal ideation. Almost invariably, it was a teenager, and in the vast majority of cases, I would say 95%, it was a young lady. And it was always, I'd walk in and there'd be a young lady there, a teen girl, in her blue paper jumpsuit that they give you, anti-suicidal outfit. They take all your clothes, everything, And by the time I left, it was not unusual. There'd be times I'd walk in and there would be 3 or 4 in a row in there, suicidal ideation. What happened? I saw a pattern emerging. And of course, a lot of these were not serious attempts. They were, cries for help. But they were also cries for attention. Now we're not going really here but I'm going to take a fork in the road here. There's 2 things that I want to address. Many of these, when the parents would show up, and it was almost always the mother, there were times it was the father. But when the mother would show up, the mother would go in kind of irritated. Very, very seldom upset. I tell you, if it was one of my kids, I would be, well, way upset. Kind of irritated. Strut in there, stare down at their daughter with kind of a disappointed, disgusted look on their face. They'd chat for a few minutes. The daughter would be looking at her like, and then the mother would go over and sit in a chair behind the bed where the daughter couldn't see her, and she'd be on her phone for the next however many hours they were there until, and usually they'd let them go because they'd have a remote psychiatrist talk to them, and then they'd be gone. I didn't see that much caring on the part of the parents. And I have said to many people, and they think that I'm a little hard-hearted on this, but I stand by it, that I never knew a kid that screwed themselves up. It's always the parents, when it's not psychiatric. Okay? That's one road. And very often, at least in the more affluent areas, it's not that the kids are given everything that they want. A lot of people mistakenly will make that, well, they're given everything they want, they're lazy. No, they have extremely high expectations set for them. And they see their parents, who are highly functioning people, raising them with high expectations. And for some of them who just don't feel like they measure up, it's too heavy a load for them to carry. Simple as that. That's why you don't see it too much in the hood. There's not a lot of high expectations there, to be honest. Okay. The other road is the one I think that we were dealing with our neighbor, and it was a psychiatric situation. The extent to which you can be ready for that or do anything about it, I'm not here to tell you or anybody what they should or could do. I don't know. I'm not in that position. I might have my opinions, but I'm going to keep my opinions to them myself, because I wouldn't swear that they are right, and I wouldn't want to mislead or hurt anyone by saying them. Is there much you can do? Each person has to answer that for themselves. But the thing that I wanted to say here is that this will be looked at as a gun issue. And it wasn't. It wasn't at all. This was a mental health issue. I am not. Now, my neighbor took pains that I do not promote. He locked his gun up. She was able to find, it had a key override, so apparently she was able to find it. But in my opinion, I've always said that, hey, having a gun is not worth much if it's locked away in a safe. Gun isn't worth much if it's unloaded. A gun is worth something if it's readily available. And I know there are many arguments here, and probably some will say this on there. Well, you can have the handprint safe and everything like that. Yeah, I think that's what he had. Yeah. But here's the thing also. I've said, and I used to say, argue against gun control people. I said, but between law enforcement and all the guys and families I've known who were in the military, and all the farmers that I've known, and I've known thousands of households that were just full of guns. And I never knew anybody to kill themselves or accidentally shoot somebody else. Because it's not the gun. So, I'm not going to say the young lady's name or her family or anything like that, but for those of you who pray, God knows who they are. And if you'd like to say a prayer for Steve's neighbors, God will hear it, and it'll help. And of course, they need help. So anyway, I wanted to throw this out, not with any recommendation. I don't have any advice. but just in case it helps people. And I'm not going to say that they should have paid closer attention. I have no idea. Sometimes we don't know the darkness that other people are walking in. And those of us who are parents worry about it every day. Every day. Do we know everything that we need to know about our kids? We don't want to be intrusive. We don't want to do this. We don't want to do that. But we want to know what we need to know. So anyway, if you know anybody who you think may be in a dark place, somebody said at the funeral how she was always smiling. And they made the the statement, a smile can save a life. And I will say this, regardless of all of the things that she was involved in, and how accomplished she was at all of them, and how highly thought of she was by everyone apparently who knew her. Apparently, she never felt that she had found a place to fit in. I'll just leave it there. So, I hope you all are all right. I hope that everybody you love is all right. Like I say, prayers for Steve's friends. God will know who that is. And I just hope that this helps someone, some people, whatever out there. So, God bless you all. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.